We believe that the state must always err on the side of this individual and not on the side of the boss, because she believes that women sometimes can get away with this and make money out of sexual harassment cases. If anything that already happens under the civil domain, she does nothing about it on her side. I'm going to talk to you in my speech about a couple of things. I'm going to discuss reporting mechanisms and how they change. I'm going to further investigate the idea of deterrence, and we believe and we strongly stand by the side which says that you must deal out the strictest of punishment. When she says that, why are you imposing such high punishments, we feel it's justified, and that's something I'll investigate further. I want to first look at the quibble from that side, that these cases are ambiguous. We are not sure what exactly happened. So what's the answer? Don't make them criminal. Really? Like, I can give you a list of cases that are subjective: domestic violence, hit and run cases, attempt to rape for that matter even is subjective, even marital rape is subjective. It's the woman's word to the husband's word at many a time. What do you do in these cases? The district attorney's office investigates. And that's precisely what we're doing in our case as well. We say that a crime isn't determined by the subjectivity of what happened, but by the degree of harm that occurred, and we look at the degree of harm. So victim affects that harm has been done to her. We go by what she says, and we go with what the investigation decides, or the investigating agency decides in that case. She says civil differences or civil suits are for individuals to settle differences between them. We think it's shameful, she says, that asking for sexual favors is a difference of opinion between individuals. They really need to be more sensitive to this case. Fine, let's go with the assumption that it's subjective for a moment, and we still say, who do you err on the side of? We say we err on the side of the woman. Let's assume it's subjective. Under the civil lawsuit is what is the harm that she points out, which means this man has to go to court if she files a suit, get a lawyer to represent himself, and fight his way. Under our side, we say that if she files a criminal suit, it's the investigating agency that decides. And clearly, after that investigation, if they find out that there was not sufficient harm, or there was not a real case, they won't file charges, or they won't press charges. Which means, if anything, we have a neutral investigating body which determines it, and only if they believe that there is a minimum benchmark of harm, will that case go to court. We say there are more checks and balances under what we are saying, sit down side. The next thing she said is, and this is the next quibble, hey, what about sexual harassment from guys who are your colleagues or inferior to you? Fine, we're happy to say that you can make them criminal as well. The point here is that we are saying that sexual harassment at work is bad. We're debating the spirit of the motion. If you want us to tackle, give you rebuttals on that, we're happy to do that as well. The last thing she spoke about was that, hey, this it destroys the relationship. Bosses won't put their shoulders around their secretaries when they say, give me a couple of printouts. First, we think that's good. I mean, we don't think office staff all the time. But secondly, we say these are regular features of how you behave in a social scene. If that means you have less drinks with your office staff, sure, we are happy to stand by that. Given the number of women we are now protecting, given the number of cases that we are now having, and given the deterrent factor that a lot of these bosses won't do it. We say we are on the side of we are on the side of the woman who is the victim or the perceived victim. You need to tell us a lot more to the other side. The next thing that I then want to talk about is about reporting of cases, and I want to investigate this. I'll discuss a couple of ideas that they spoke of inside of this idea as well. First, like Ananta already told you, let's examine what happens in status quo. We said companies have a lot of mechanisms. So generally you can go ahead, you can complain through those. What are the results of these complaints? We say more often than not your boss sits on the board or on that complaint planner, because we're talking about superiors, we're talking about CEOs, promoters, partners, especially in small firms. These guys are the always present decision making body. So we say it doesn't help a lot that there's no objectivity there. But secondly, we say what's the result? Even if you assume it's an established MNC and things like that, they either transfer the boss, which means it doesn't affect him, or they transfer this woman, which affects her even worse, because more often than not, she doesn't want to be, the action shouldn't be taken against her, she should be protected. We say what happens next? They might probably fire her, which means she's helpless. If they prove or they find out that the claim was false, they'll fire her, which means she's helpless. She's more often than not a clerk or a secretary. She doesn't even have the best degree, which means she can find another replacement in her job. If they fire the boss, then that's another alternative. We're happy to be reasonable and say some companies are ethical and will fire the boss. We say he's a CEO. More often than not, he can just go away with paying a couple of $100,000. He's so senior, and we know the way corporate world works. It's you scratch my back, I scratch yours. He'll simply find another CEO position or 10 other companies who are happy to take him with a pay rise, in fact, Mr. Speaker. We say that doesn't change anything. We say when it comes to a civil lawsuit, what happens again? We say the woman under status quo needs the courage, the resources, the time and the effort to go to a court and file that civil suit. We say everyone comes to know of it, and it's extremely dangerous because either she represents herself in court, and more often than not, like none of these cases even last a day, but even if she gets a lawyer, that's extremely expensive, and then that's like the place where, you know, he has to come and defend himself in court, something you didn't want happening. We say under our policy, what happens? Let's take the next idea when I'll take you, okay, actually I'll take you now.
Okay, dude, this is a tension in your case, right? Because you say the status quo is that most court cases being thrown out under civil paradigm. How would court cases going to be less thrown out under the criminal paradigm?
We never said court cases are thrown out under civil paradigm. We said it's difficult for these cases to be won because these individuals more often than not don't have the money to get the best lawyers or have to represent themselves. On the second hand, we say what happens otherwise is out of court case settlements, which also happens in the civil domain, which means then that this woman has to file non-disclosure agreements and can never ever talk about these things. I wonder why you said you're here to that. So lastly, Madam Chair, what's important to realize in this debate? We need to look at the deterrent. We say guys in the office or superiors will now think twice before putting their shoulder around their secretary to get printouts, and that's extremely good. We say if they can get off by paying a couple of $100,000, if they know they'll always be hired, if they know they don't have a criminal record, that's when these cases perpetuate. We say sexual harassment today is something that violates like the fundamental right of these women, which is like what the person in the second wave of feminism fought for, which is equal access and opportunity to employment. We say there are three things women fought for, and I don't remember all of these three, but definitely one was sexual assault, one was sexual harassment, and one was domestic violence. The other two are already criminal. We say we must make this criminal because it's damaging to the woman and it's damaging to her career. On this side of the house, we stand for that woman. On that side of the house, they stand for the superior boss and want to err on the side, want to err on his side. We're happy to propose.
Speaker for speech. Now let's call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition.